Welcome back to SpeakNest English Podcast Zone, your space to learn English the easy and engaging way. Today's episode is episode 43, and we're diving into a topic we all use every day. Talking about the past. Whether you're telling a story, sharing a memory, or explaining what happened. This episode will teach you how to use the past tense, tell clear stories, and add emotion to your words. Let's unlock the power of the past.
Today we're tackling something, really fundamental, I think. How we talk about the past in English.
Yeah, it's core to pretty much everything, conversation-wise.
And we got some really interesting source material from you, our listener, that gets right to the heart of it. How we use language for past events.
It makes a strong case for why it's all so important.
So our mission here really is to unpack that source, pull out the key nuggets, understand why we talk about the past, and how we actually do it according to this material.
What it says about the basics.
Exactly. And the source, it doesn't hang about, does it? It states its core idea right off the bat. We are talking about the past. All
time. Constantly. Yeah, yesterday, last week,
Sure.
Years ago, just there in our chats. And what this source really drills down on is why that matters so much. It argues pretty convincingly, I think, that being able to talk about your past clearly, that's what makes conversations feel, real.
Real and alive, yeah.
Alive, exactly. It gives them that spark.
Does the source suggest it's more than just facts? Like if you say, I went to the market.
Right. The source frames it like this. You're not just stating a fact. It's like you're opening a little door to that moment, inviting someone in.
Okay.
And that simple sentence structure is the key to that door. It lets the listener sort of step into the memory with you. That's what makes it engaging, personal.
So it creates presence, even talking about something done and dusted.
That's the idea presented, yeah. It bridges that time gap.
Makes total sense. It's about sharing your world, not just relaying information. So how does the source say we build that bridge? What's the main tool?
Well, the material is very clear on this point. English tense can get complicated, obviously, but the absolute foundation, the core mechanism for just recounting simple past stuff.
Yeah.
It's the simple past tense sentence. That structure.
Just the basic structure.
The basic structure. Subject plus simple past verb, maybe an object or some context. That's the bedrock the source focuses on.
So mastering that is key.
It's presented as the absolute key. It's simple, but powerful. You build bigger stories on it, sure, but it works on its own.
Like those examples given. She watched a movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or they had fun at the beach.
I ate dinner. Simple.
Simple. But the source treats them as more than just grammar drills. They're like the essential units for transferring experience.
Right. The building blocks of sharing. And this is where it really connects back to you listening. The source stresses that getting the simple past down isn't just about ticking a grammar box.
No, not at all.
It's about empowering you to share your story, your unique experiences. It's the basic skill needed to make your conversations feel authentic, engaging.
Exactly right. That foundational tool lets you build that narrative bridge, like we said. Bring your history alive for someone else. That's the argument here.
Okay, so wrapping it up then, the big takeaway from this source is really the power and the central role of these simple past tense sentences. They're the engine.
The engine for sharing our history, making those connections feel real.
Yeah. So, thinking about that, here's something to maybe chew on based on what this source implies. If it's really these basic sentences, I went, she saw, they did. If that simple structure is the key that unlocks this huge complex thing of sharing our entire personal history, letting us connect deeply through lived experiences, well, what does that simplicity tell us about communication itself at its core?
That's a good question to ponder. The power in the simple stuff. Hey, so we're jumping right into the source material you shared with us. And today, the focus is really on mastering storytelling in English, specifically when you're, talking about the past.
That's right. We've got your notes here. And yeah, the mission is basically to pull out the absolute key things, the most important insights to help you handle this. It can be a bit tricky.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. So when we tell stories about things that happened, we use past tense verbs. Simple enough, right? And for a lot of verbs, it's really straightforward. You just add aid, like walk becomes walked, learn becomes learn.
Pretty easy. But the material you sent, it really highlights that, not every verb follows that neat little rule, and this isn't some, minor detail, these exceptions, they're some of the most common verbs we use, like every single day.
Right. The irregular verbs. That's what your sources call them.
Exactly. They don't take the ed. They change form, sometimes in ways you just wouldn't predict.
And this is where it gets really important for telling a good story, isn't it? Because you pretty much can't tell a decent story about the past without using these verbs. Your sources list some key examples like go. It doesn't become go, obviously.
Right. It becomes went. And think about it. How often do you need to talk about where you went? Or eat becomes ate. See becomes saw. I mean, we're constantly talking about what we ate or what we saw.
Absolutely. And have changes to had, do becomes did. Just try telling a story without using had or did.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah. And the material gives some great, simple example sentences to show this. I went to school.
Mm-hmm. She ate pizza.
We had a great time. They're not complicated sentences,
Right.
but they nail those vital, irregular forms.
And what's really interesting here is why getting these specific verbs right matters so much when you're telling a story. Using the correct irregular form, went, ate, saw, had, did, it just instantly makes your English sound more natural, more fluent, to a native speaker.
Yeah, it lets the listener focus on your actual story.
Exactly. Not get caught up on a weird sounding verb. It's like paving a smooth road for your narrative.
That makes total sense. If you say, I don't know, I eated pizza. Okay, people might understand you.
Sure, probably.
But it pulls them out of the moment.
Yeah.
Right, out of the story. Saying, I ate pizza just keeps everything flowing smoothly.
Precisely. And the material you shared, it also gives a really practical tip, which I like, how to actually master these things. It says, it's not just about looking at lists. The best way, the most effective way to learn them is by actively using them yourself.
Right, putting them in your own sentences.
Yeah.
So not just staring at a chart, go in, eat ate, but actually saying out loud or writing down things like, okay, yesterday I went to the park and I saw a dog. We had fun. Something like that.
Exactly that. Your sources suggest that this kind of active use, this recall and application, it's really key. It helps build that sort of muscle memory. For these specific, super common exceptions, kind of like how native speakers pick them up without even thinking about it.
Okay, so pulling it all together, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive into your sources? It seems like, while the ed rule is great for lots of verbs in the past tense,
It covers a lot.
the real fluency, the natural sound of your storytelling, it depends hugely on getting this core group of irregular verbs right, the ones that have their own special forms.
Yeah, getting those high-frequency verbs correct is non-negotiable if you want a clear, engaging story about the past.
And mastering them, as the material suggests, comes more from actually doing it, putting them into practice yourself, rather than just, rote memorization.
Right. Use them or lose them, basically.
Which leaves us with kind of a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Considering that these really fundamental everyday verbs go eat, see, have, do that, they don't follow the standard ed rule. What does that tell us?
Yeah, what does their sheer commonness combined with their irregularity suggest about, the history, the deep, messy, sort of organic evolution of the English language itself?
Something interesting to think about as you practice telling your own stories.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Hey there.
So today we're digging into something pretty fundamental, but honestly really powerful for communication.
Yeah, how to talk about the past, basically.
Yeah.
How to tell stories in English.
Exactly. And we've got some great notes, guidance actually provided by you, the listener, really focusing on structuring those past narratives.
Right, stories about things that have already happened.
Yeah. So our mission for this deep dive, let's try and pull out the essential steps from that material.
Core stuff.
The stuff that makes telling your stories about the past clear, engaging, and just easy for other people to actually follow along with.
And that's so valuable, isn't it? It's, it's more than just getting the grammar right. It's really about being able to paint pictures with your words. Using the past tense effectively brings those experiences to life for whoever's listening.
Totally. So looking at the core finding from the material you shared, there's this, it's a really simple structure.
Simple but effective.
Yes. For recounting something that happened. And it breaks down into just 4 key elements. They sort of build on each other.
Like building blocks for your story. You set the scene first, then you get into the action.
Exactly. First up, the source says, establish when. When did it happen?
Right.
That immediately grounds your listener. Simple phrases like yesterday or last week, maybe 2 years ago, that kind of thing.
Giving that time context right at the start. It's like putting your listener on the right spot on the timeline. Essential for clarity, really.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, next. Introduce who was involved.
The characters.
Yeah, keep it simple. I, my friend, my family, we. Just let the listener know who the main players are.
Right. So time first, then the people.
Yep.
Okay. Makes sense. We know when and who.
Then comes the heart of it, what happened. This is where you describe the actions, the events.
The plot.
That plot. And the source really emphasizes using past tense verbs here. This bit could be one sentence, maybe a few, just detailing what went down.
And this is where the action is. Maybe just a quick note on those past tense verbs, because it's pretty important for this section.
Good point.
For lots of regular verbs, you just add that ed ending, right? Like play becomes played. But English has all those tricky irregular ones too.
Oh, yeah. Go becomes went.
Eat becomes ate, have becomes had. The ones getting those right really makes the action clear.
Absolutely. It's what drives the story forward. Okay. And then the final element, number 4. Share how you felt.
The emotional connection.
Exactly. Were you excited, maybe happy, scared, even just tired? It adds that human layer.
And adding that feeling, it really invites your listener to connect with your experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes the story resonate more deeply.
Yeah.
You've gone from setting the scene to showing the action and now sharing the impact it had on you. It's a neat progression.
And the source gives a great, really compact example using all 4. Last summer, I went to the beach with my cousins. We swam in the ocean, played volleyball, and ate ice cream. It was an amazing day.
See? It works perfectly. Last summer, that's your when.
Yeah.
I, with my cousins, that's the who. Went, swam, played, ate. The what happened using those past verbs.
Right.
And then it was an amazing day. How you felt. It's just clear. A step-by-step guide for the listener. Easy to follow, easy to picture.
And this is where it loops right back to you listening now. This simple framework, it's not just theory, is it?
Not at all.
This when, who, what happened, how you felt structure. It's a tool, something you can literally grab right now.
Yeah, use it today.
To share your own experiences much more vividly. It's like a shortcut to clarity and to real connection when you talk about things that happened in the past.
This deep dive into the source material really highlights how powerful a simple bit of scaffolding can be. It makes me wonder, how can you take this basic 4-part structure, this foundation, and use it to build even more complex, more vibrant pictures of your past in everyday chats?
Yeah.
Something to think about, the possibilities it unlocks.
That's a great point. Start with this structure. Practice using it. You'll probably find it makes a huge difference in how easily and how enjoyably your stories land.
Definitely worth trying.
Okay, that's a wrap on this deep dive into making your past stories really shine. So today, we're getting into something really fundamental, actually. It's about sharing your world, specifically talking about the past in English to tell a story. We've been looking at some source material focused right on that, how to master telling stories using the past tense well.
Yeah, and our goal, our mission, you could say, is to look at some really specific tools the sources highlight.
Right, tools to help you feel more sure of yourself when you're sharing your own history, your experiences.
And what these sources really hammer home is just how vital some seemingly simple words are.
Simple but powerful.
Exactly. For anchoring your stories in time, this isn't really about just ticking grammar boxes.
No, it's more practical.
It's about giving your listener those little signposts, so they can follow your trip into the past. Makes them feel like they're almost there with you.
Yeah, like they get the timeline.
It's really the heart of clear communication when you're recounting things that happened.
Totally. And the source material, it makes a really strong case that, okay, the past tense verb is obviously key, but it's the mix, the combination with specific time words that properly locks it in.
Yes, that combination is crucial.
It points out how just a few phrases act like anchors. They immediately place the event for whoever's listening.
Precisely. The sources point out, while the simple past tells what happened, think, I went to the store.
Okay.
Adding something like yesterday or last week tells when, suddenly, I went to the store yesterday.
Ah, right. Instantly clearer.
That single word, yesterday, the sources stress, it just wipes out any question about the time frame. It pins it down.
And yesterday is such a workhorse, isn't it? The sources definitely highlight that one for the day before now. Always with the simple past. I saw him yesterday. We talked yesterday. Simple.
And building on that, the sources talk about the power of last night, last week, last month, last year.
Right. Gives you broader chunks of recent time.
Yeah, lets you signal those bigger periods quickly. The source notes that using last year sets a very different scene than yesterday. Helps manage expectations for your story's scope.
Okay, what else? The sources also mentioned phrases counting back from right now, like 2 days ago.
Ah, yes. The ago structure.
Yeah. And you can swap in weeks, months, years. 3 weeks ago, 5 years ago.
The source explains this gives a sort of relative point in the past. Depends on when you're actually speaking.
That's a good way to put it, relative. And then for pinning things down to like a fixed point in history, not relative to now.
Like a specific date.
Exactly. The sources include things like in 2010 or in October. That's how you place something on the calendar, basically.
Right.
A different kind of ink.
Okay, got it. And one more the source mentioned.
Okay.
For stuff that happened like just now, right before we started talking.
Oh, right. A few minutes ago.
Yeah. Simple, but you need it for that immediate past stuff. So if you look at what the sources are really emphasizing, you've got yesterday, you've got the last night, week, month, year pattern, things ending in ago, phrases starting with in plus a year or month, and then a few minutes ago.
That's the toolkit.
That's pretty much the core toolkit they identify. And the argument in the sources is clear. Using these specific time anchors consistently with your past tense verbs, it just massively boosts clarity.
Helps the listener build that mental timeline while you talk.
Exactly.
So it really boils down to this, doesn't it? Based on the source material, getting good at telling past stories isn't only about verb tenses.
No, not just that.
It's about strategically using these, pretty simple time words. They're powerful because they take a general past thing and make it specific. They give it context, which makes your story way clearer, more engaging for you to tell, and definitely easier for others to follow.
And if you think bigger picture for a sec, this is actually quite interesting. The source material shows how these fairly basic words and phrases, yesterday, last year, whatever, they don't just report the time of your story.
What do they do then?
They actively shape how the listener perceives when it all happened, within the story itself. They construct the timeline in the listener's mind.
That leaves us with something to chew on then. If these specific time words have such a big impact, such outsized power to define when, what other simple-seeming words might have that kind of hidden power in language, shaping how we understand things beyond just time? Something for you to think about next time you tell a story.
To be here.
So today we're digging into something that sounds simple, but can be surprisingly tricky in English. Talking about the past, but specifically how you describe things that didn't happen.
Yeah, saying, I didn't do something. It seems basic, right?
Totally.
But the way we structure that negative in the past, it's probably one of the most common little errors people make.
And getting it right is, pretty crucial if you want to be clear when you're telling a story or just recounting what went down, or what didn't go down.
Exactly.
So we've got a source here, a really helpful text that looks at these kinds of grammar points and how they actually work in storytelling.
Right.
Our mission then is to unpack that core structure for negative past sentences. Why it works like it does.
And why nailing it helps you communicate so much more precisely about your experiences.
Okay, so let's get into the structure itself. How do we consistently say something didn't happen in the past?
Well, the formula is pretty fixed. You start with your subject, who or what we're talking about.
Okay.
Then you use did not, or much more commonly in conversation, the contraction didn't.
Didn't, got it.
And then, and this is the absolute key part, the bit people often stumble on, you must use the base form of the verb.
The base form, not the past tense form.
Absolutely not the past tense form. That's the critical point.
Right, because your brain is talking about the past, so it kind of wants to grab the past tense verb, like went or saw or finished.
Exactly. That's the intuition. You think past, you think went. But the rule is firm. After didn't, the verb snaps back to its simplest base form, like go, see, finish.
So why is that? Why does English do that? It feels a bit counterintuitive, maybe.
Well, it's actually quite logical if you think about it. The word did and didn't is already doing the job of marking the past tense.
Ah, okay. So did is carrying the past tense signal.
Precisely. It's like the past tense marker for that whole chunk of the sentence. And English grammar, in this specific structure, doesn't like to mark the past tense twice.
Redundant, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. So once did shows up in didn't, the main verb can just relax back into its base form. It doesn't need the past tense ending anymore.
That makes sense. Let's look at the examples from our source text. They really show this clearly. First one, I didn't go to the party.
Perfect example. Didn't go. Go is the base form.
Not I didn't went, which you hear that sometimes, eh?
All the time. It's a super common mistake because, like you said, people are thinking past tense.
Okay, next example. He didn't finish his homework.
Same pattern. Didn't finish. Base form finish.
Not didn't finish, even though finished is the regular past tense.
Right. The did in didn't handles the past tense part.
And the last one they give, we didn't watch the match.
Yep, didn't watch. Base form watch, not watched. It's consistent. Subject plus didn't plus base verb.
So, mastering this, why is it so important for you, the listener?
Well, it's about accuracy, fundamentally.
Right.
It lets you clearly state what didn't happen, which is often just as important as stating what you did. Think about telling a story about a trip.
Okay.
Saying, we saw the Eiffel Tower is great. But saying, we didn't get to see the Louvre adds a whole other layer of information, doesn't it?
Yeah, it manages expectations or explains maybe why the trip felt incomplete or just adds detail. It shapes the listener's picture.
Exactly. It adds nuance. It prevents misunderstandings. Sometimes knowing what wasn't there or what action wasn't taken is crucial context.
It lets you describe absences, which can be really powerful.
It really can. And it's foundational. You need this simple structure down pat before you build more complex descriptions of the past.
Okay, so wrapping up the main takeaway from this deep dive, that formula is key.
Subject plus didn't plus the base form of the verb.
Remember that base form, that's the golden rule here.
It really is. Lock that in.
And maybe a final thought for you to chew on.
Yeah, think about this. When you're describing a past event or situation, how does deliberately including what didn't happen change the story? How does focusing on those absences, maybe the things that were expected but missing, alter your understanding or the listener's understanding of what actually did take place?
That's interesting. Sometimes the gaps tell you more than the facts present.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Something to consider.
Definitely something to reflect on. Okay, that's all for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
So, today we're jumping into some really interesting notes, all about getting better at storytelling by, well, talking about the past in English.
And our goal, our mission for this particular deep dive is to pull out like one core rule, a really foundational way to ask questions about past events.
Right. And figure out why it works
Yeah.
and, how useful it is, like how it can immediately help you talk to people about what they've done.
Yeah, exactly. Because asking questions is, well, it's everything when someone's telling a story, isn't it? You want the details.
Totally. It's how you connect.
Exactly.
And looking through these notes, there's this one structure for asking about the past that just, well, it really stood out.
It's absolutely key. I mean, the notes cover lots of ground on narrating things, but they really spotlight this question structure. It's essential for digging into those stories people tell.
And the structure itself, laid out in the notes, it's actually super simple when you see it. It's just did plus subject plus base verb.
Okay, let's break that down a bit.
Yes, a subject is just, who or what. We're talking about you, she, they, that kind of thing. And the base verb is just the plain verb, the dictionary form, like go, call, enjoy, before you add an ed or change it for the past.
And what's really clever, I think, is how did does all the work. It carries the whole past tense meaning for the question.
Oh, right.
You put did right at the start, and boom, everyone knows you're asking about something that already happened in the past.
Yeah, and because did is doing that job, the main verb, the action word after the subject, it just stays simple.
Exactly. It stays in that base form.
Which is where people often slip up.
Yeah.
Right. You instinctively want to make that main verb past tense too. Like, did you went?
Precisely. But you don't need to. Did handles it. It's like this neat little shortcut that keeps things consistent. And your notes have some perfect examples.
Yeah, they do. Like, did you go to school yesterday?
Yeah.
See, it's go, the base verb, not went.
Or did she call you? It's call, not called.
And another one, did they enjoy the movie? Enjoy, not enjoyed. Every time, the main verb is just a simple base form because did is right there at the front.
Right.
Handling the past tense part.
And the great thing about really getting this pattern, this did plus subject plus base verb thing, is that it's not just for these simple yes-no questions. It's the foundation for more complex ones, too.
Oh, yeah, good point. Like, if you add a question word like where or what.
Exactly. So if you want to know where someone went, you just add where at the start, but the engine, the did plus subject plus base verb, stays the same. Where did they go?
Ah, okay. So that core structure is still there. Did they go is inside. Where did they go?
Precisely. It's that reliable backbone, whether it's did you or what did you or when did she, it's always there.
The notes also touch briefly on the short answers, which also use that keyword did.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Simple.
Right. Keeps it consistent.
Which loops back to why this structure is so important, why the notes highlight it. Because once you really internalize did plus subject plus base verb, you suddenly have the key to ask about, well, almost any past event.
Yeah, you hear someone talking about their day or a trip or whatever.
And bam, you have the tool. This simple pattern lets you ask those follow-up questions, dig a bit deeper, show you're listening.
It's more than just grammar rules, isn't it? It's really a tool for conversation, for connecting.
Yeah.
It lets you actively join in when people share their past experiences.
Definitely. So just to recap that core structure we pulled out, did plus subject plus base verb, keep that one handy.
Okay, so here's something to think about, little takeaway. Consider a story someone told you recently, maybe about their weekend or something that happened at work. Using this rule we just talked about, did plus subject plus base verb.
Yeah.
What's one specific question you could ask them now to find out just one more little detail about that past event?
Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we are doing a deep dive into something really fundamental, how we talk about the past in English. But we're looking at it through maybe a slightly different lens.
Right. Not diving into complex grammar rules from a book.
Exactly. Our source material, it's just a tiny, totally normal, everyday conversation.
Yeah, just a few lines someone shared with us. And it really captures how people actually talk about what they did. It feels, I don't know, almost automatic.
Automatic, yeah, that's a good word. And that's really our mission here today. Let's take this little piece of dialogue and sort of figure out what makes it tick. What's the basic blueprint there for sharing past stuff effectively? The bits we don't even notice.
Okay, so the conversation itself is super brief. It goes like this. Maya asks, "What did you do yesterday?" And Ben replies, "I studied for my test and watched a movie." Maya says, "Nice. I didn't do anything special, just relaxed." And Ben finishes, "Sounds like a good day too."
That's it. Wow. 4 lines.
That's it.
But you know exactly what happened, right? No confusion about when or if they finished doing those things.
And what's really interesting is how those few words use the absolute core structure for this. Look at the question, what did you do?
Ah, right. You've got the did there, and then the main verb do. It's just the simple form.
Exactly. Why that structure?
Oh, yeah. Why?
Well, did is what we call the auxiliary verb here. It's like a little flag.
A flag.
Yeah, it signals, hey, we're talking simple past tense. And when you use did in questions, or like we'll see, in negatives, the main verb just chills out. It goes back to its base form, do, instead of did.
Okay. So the did does the heavy lifting for the tense.
Pretty much. It marks the tense right at the start. Super efficient.
And then the answers, Ben's answer, I studied, I watched. That's different.
Right, because those are positive statements.
Yeah.
For finished actions and simple past positive statements, you usually just use the past form of the verb right after the subject.
Like subject plus past verb?
Yep. Studied, that's a regular one. Ed, watched. Another regular one. It's the most direct way, like saying fact. This happened.
Simple. And then Maya's response, I didn't do anything special.
And there it is again. Didn't, which is just did not.
Ah, so like the question.
Exactly like the question structure. The auxiliary did, this time with not, carries the past tense and the negative meaning.
Letting the main verb do stay in its simple base form again.
You got it. It just reinforced that pattern.
Yeah.
You use did or didn't for questions and negatives. And the main verb stays simple.
So, wow, even in this tiny 4-line chat, we're seeing the 3 key parts of the simple past blueprint for finished actions.
Yeah.
The did you do question, the I verbed positive statement,
Yep.
and the I didn't do negative one.
That's the core toolkit right there. And even her last bit, just relax. It's short,
Yeah, very short.
but it implies I relaxed.
Yeah.
It fits that positive statement pattern, subject plus past verb. It just shows you don't need complicated sentences for this stuff.
Right. Simple past forms, used clearly, does the job for talking about yesterday.
Perfectly.
Which makes you wonder, how often do we really need fancier past structures for just chatting about what you did, like yesterday or last weekend? This example makes it seem like simple past is kind of the default.
It really is the workhorse for completed past actions. You could use something like past continuous, I was studying.
Right.
But that changes the meaning slightly, doesn't it? It implies it was ongoing, maybe interrupted, or setting a scene.
Yeah, not just I did this, then I did that.
Exactly. For listing finished things from a specific past time, like yesterday, simple past is just, it's the tool. Direct, efficient, sounds natural. Anything else might even sound a bit weird here.
So it's not just about grammar rules, it's about communication efficiency.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the big takeaway seems to be that even the most casual, natural chats about the past, they rely on these fundamental structures, primarily this simple past blueprint.
The positive, the negative, the question form, they're doing the work.
So what? Why does this matter?
Well, so what is that seeing this highlights the power of keeping things simple.
Yeah.
You don't need to tie yourself in linguistic knots to just say what you did.
Yeah.
Clear, direct language using these basic, simple past patterns, it works perfectly fine in normal conversation. It's completely natural.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Think about how you'd tell someone what you did yesterday or, last weekend. Does it sound like this little example?
Yeah, do you find yourself using that did you, I did, I didn't structure?
And could you maybe use this simple structure even more to keep things clear and efficient when you're just sharing finished actions? Something to think about.
That's a wrap on episode 43, talking about the past in English. Today you learned how to use past tense verbs, how to tell a story, how to ask and answer past questions, how to add feeling and emotion to your words. In the next episode, we'll explore how to express opinions in English, how to agree, disagree, and sound confident. Until next time, this is your host from SpeakNest English Podcast Zone saying, keep learning, keep practicing, keep growing. See you in the next episode.